I was just thinking to myself which units I've improved my opinion of since the launch of, since I've sort of seen all the War Scrolls, and which units my opinion is worse now than it was at the launch of the War Scrolls. I guess we'll find out. Let's talk about Kruleboyz units. This is not a tier list. This is pre-tier list. Thanks to all my patrons, Baron of Dice for supporting the channel. Wyvern makes good art. Wow. Kabam. Okay, so we're just going to do the units. And, I mean, we're going to do them sort of in context of the... You have to do like a wizard in context of the spell lore, right? And you kind of have to do heroes in context of the heroic traits, right? So Slippery Scumbag is good on the monsters. And Egomaniac is good on the monsters too, but Sludge Raker's kind of where you want Egomaniac. But Slippery Scumbag is interesting and fun. So when we think about like the Vulcha, for example, it's going to benefit from Slippery Scumbag a lot more than, you know, the Sludge Raker. So, and yeah, the spells are pretty good. Like just without, you know, having to go too much into it, right? The spells are pretty good. And then we also have to think about how good the units are in terms of the dirty tricks. So essentially it's the lethal surprise, or sorry, it's the sneak. That matters a lot here for our purposes. Cool. Shall we start with Kragnos? I think maybe Kruleboyz, like, whoa, hot take, maybe have the worst Kragnos. Like, not the worst Kragnos, but the worst use for him. He's so just aggressive, and I've seen lots of people talking about, like going second and just playing counterpunch. So it's like, like, essentially telling your opponent, like, I'm gonna 3d6 charge you in your turn. Right? Like, I'm doing that. Right? And that's part of your game plan. You're like, I stick something slow right in the middle, give it, you know, this reach. And if you have any tricks after that, like if you're in Iron Jaws, for example, and then you get to move something 3 inches closer and then 3d6 charge. Right? Like, and then pile 3d6 more in. Yeah. So, I think Ragers are actually the way that Brutes are going to go. I think it's going to be Ardboys and Ragers, at least for these point costs. Yeah, anyway, we're not here to talk about them. So, I don't know. Like, Kragnos is not... I'm not interested in Kragnos. The best thing I've seen for him is the fact that the Vulcha-boss, which let's just skip to for the sake of Killaboss and Corpse-rippa Vulcha. So this Rampage, so if it charged, right, pick an enemy within 1 inch of it. And this is any charge phase, so you can do this on your, like, the counter charge as well, right? Roll a number of dice equal to the unmodified charge roll, and we know that 3d6 charge rolls from Kragnos do not count as modified, so they are unmodified. So we're going to average 10 dice here. For each 4 up, inflict 1 damage on the target. So this is, on average, it's going to be 5 mortal wounds. And then, with Slippery Scumbag, you can just fly away. So that seems like an interesting thing in Kruleboyz. Like, if you're thinking about playing Kruleboyz with Kragnos, I would definitely say that a Killaboss with Slippery Scumbag is going to be your friend. But besides that, I don't know, like, 3d6 charge isn't great in Kruleboyz. We want to sort of stay within our auras. You know, we're way more of a... I mean, so is Iron Jaws, I guess, but I don't know. Not super interested, so... But I mean, the rest of it's good. Maybe he might turn out to be good. Like, we'll see. I doubt he's good in Kruleboyz, so... Gobsprakk. So Gobsprakk is a lot better than I initially thought. Everyone complained that he was overcosted at 300 and... What is he, 360 points? I should probably get my points up. But, like, I remember when we first started the edition, when everything came out, I was saying, Ding Dong, the Gob is dead. Because I just thought to myself, like, he's gone up in points so much, and, like, there's no primal dice anymore. So without primal dice and without... You know, it's like, well, his best thing is gone. And it's true, right? Like, he's not as powerful as he was last season at all. But it's a completely different army, and it's a completely different edition, and what he is a 2-cast 1-drop. And he's really fast, so he can take advantage of the places of power. he has a big base and he's fast, so that's like optimal for places of power. So he's just really expensive, right? So the idea is that you can have a Killaboss and on Vulcha and a Shaman, but you lose the 5-up ward, right? You lose the 5-up ward, and what you gain is Slippery Scumbag and the Swamp Staff. You gain that on the Shaman, so you have 2 casts at +1, and this extra save thing that you can do, and what you're giving up is like worth it. So I don't know, like we'll see. That's an interesting way. I've always really liked this Swampcalla Shaman, but I think Gobsprakk is good. I think Gobsprakk is playable. He might not be like the best, but even for his point cost, like he's his biggest downfall right now this season is that he's a War Master. You know, because what we want to do is we want to give like bodyguard to the Sludge Raker. Just pile it on, man. Debuff, debuff, debuff. So yeah, play Gobsprakk. If you like him, play him. Like he'll be good and he'll be strong on the table, and you know, he won't feel as good, but he'll still feel strong. You know, he's not as oppressive as a caster. Like people hated him, and he feels more fair now, and that's what's happened this edition. Everyone's things feel more fair now. Killaboss and Corpse-rippa Vulcha talked about it a little bit, but it's good. Like, you know, it's a little bit expensive, I feel, but for what it does, kind of what it's supposed to do. The commanding view is a pretty good ability. Like this redeploy at a minimum of 4 is pretty strong. If you want to play a Marshcrawla, then this is definitely a really strong ability, because you right, just like you need an exception to run and then charge. Redeploy has the run keyword, so it counts as a run because it has the run keyword, because that's what this edition's like, right? And then that's it. So it means you can't charge unless you can run and charge. Redeploy and charge is sweet, which is why Ragers are really strong too, because they can redeploy and charge, and also you also have the heroic trait, eye for the fight, something like that, where you can redeploy to a minimum of 4. So redeploying a minimum of 4 and then Mighty Destroyers in addition is like suddenly they can redeploy and charge and like get places and deny tactics essentially, right? And then strike first when they charge applies to their opponent's turn as well, so they can sort of ninja in on your opponent's turn and like hit before your opponent does, and they slap. Yep. I'm gonna play lots of Vulcha-boss for sure. Killaboss on Nashtooth I feel like is kind of a miss. Let's see, Kruleboyz on Nashtooth, 220 points, and it can take a Wrangler. And it takes all Kruleboyz. We're in this weird thing where +1 to hit is not super important in Kruleboyz. We just want to deal mortal wounds, right? So this is better with Monsta-killaz than it is with Gutrippaz. Right, because Monsta-killaz are 4-3-1-1, while Gutrippaz are 4-3-0-1, and that's of course to hit, wound, rend, and damage, right? So essentially, Monsta-killaz have one rend better. So, but it's kind of like, I don't know. He's kind of niche. I don't know. And then add 3 to the target's control score until the start of the turn. I mean, like, he's fine. He's just not worth a drop. He's not worth the drop. That's it. Right? The end. Not good enough. That's what heroes feel like this season. It's like, well, which 2 or 3 do you have that are like actually good and worth a drop? Same thing with the Killaboss with Stabgrot. He's just not worth a drop. Even including him, to be honest, I think he's actually pretty awful. And here's the thing. So I was just saying we don't care about like +1 to hit a lot of, like, sometimes. Monsta-killaz, I guess there is an argument for a group of Monsta-killaz, but you can't reinforce them, so all-out attack doesn't feel super worth it either. Like, I kind of prefer just the movement ones right now. Like, I haven't played a ton of games, right? But like moving around the battlefield feels good. Well, I don't know. It's like, I still feel like picking who goes first and second matters. You know? Like, some armies are going to not care. and it's going to be like high drops, or some armies are going to be like, I can do both. And I think that's like what my goal is to be with Kruleboyz, is to hit a spot where it's like, well, if I go first or second, I don't care. I have a plan. I have dirty tricks for you all day. You just got to watch out for the double. But it's hard to double you because you can just sneak your stuff out of the way or in the way. Like sneaking a screen in front of like monsters and stuff is strong. So, I don't know. But the solid attack on this guy, I mean, like, yeah, when it comes to a drop, if you go first or second, you just have to ask yourself if that matters. And then you have to ask yourself with your list, do I have a plan for that? Right? What's my plan going to be if I go first? And if it matters to you a lot, right, then you have to kind of play like 3 drops. You know? But this guy's, I don't think he's very good, period. So adding +1 to wound. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, you're just not going to use all that attack. You know? Iron Jaws, this guy would be sick in Iron Jaws. Iron Jaws are desperate for +1 to hit. Just desperate for it. But this, like, I don't know. And then what, he's got a once per game 5-up ward, right? Or a bit of damage. It's like, whatever. What's his point cost? 130? Yeah, no way. Not even close. I kind of feel that way with the Merc Knob too. Like I just don't see it. Like he just parks on a home objective, and then his Breath of the Mire Drake isn't very good at all. It's just like, and he's a drop too, so it's like there's no way that I'm gonna take a drop over this. Well, I think in Iron Jaws they have the Gordrak Wah, right? Which is +1 to hit in an 18-inch bubble, which is good, which is exactly what that army needs. Like, I'm telling you, like, if you're going in with Gordrak and, like, 2 full units of Ragers who both are running and charging and have Strike First, and then Gordrak's going to hit whatever their biggest thing is, and because he gets bonuses against wizards and heroes, or monsters and wizards, right? I think it was. So it's like, if it's a monster, it's like he's getting a bunch of extra whatever, and then if it's like Alariel, or if it's like there's just a bunch of like these big, if it's hero wizard monsters, right? So if you can just like crash into him with Gordrak and 2 units of 6 Ragers and call your Wah and give them all +1 to hit, that's like legit, but it's just once, and then the other one was all out attack, right? Like that's it. So that's what the Mega Boss should have done. Mega Boss should have given +1 to hit. His second ability, where it's just more attacks, right? Like just for that turn, should have been +1 to hit. Mega Boss sucks. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, Merc Knob just doesn't make the cut. He's just a thumbs down. Well, it is. It's like, it feels like it's designed to make it hard for us to get +1 attacks. I think it is. It's like, here's your like obvious weakness, orcs. Right? You have good armor, you have mortal wounds in Kruleboyz, you have some decent shooting, right? Like some really good big pig cavalry, 3-up saves, right? 4-up saves in Kruleboyz. Like Kruleboyz got that +1 save, I think, for the most part. Maybe I'm just totally off base here. No, Gutrippaz are still 5s, never mind. So, I don't know, like, it's fine. Other armies, I'm sure, feel the same way. But Gordrak, man. I think Gordrak's better than the Maw-Krusha. I don't think the 2d6 pile-in is useful with such a huge model. He's just such a big model, it just doesn't work, right? 2d6 pile-in, well, he can't go anywhere anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's like he's got, like, anyway. Merc Knob is a pass. Swampcalla Shaman, I think, is sick. And the reason I think he's sick, if you take him, I think you have to give him the staff. With +1 to cast and +1 casts, suddenly this thing is actually kind of scary. Like, when you're at +2 to cast, you can countercast a Kronspine on a 7. And then cast another spell. Still give your +1 to save, which is a good spell, by the way. and your Choking Mist, your -1 attacks, which is a good spell, by the way. He's also interesting compared to Gobsprakk because he's not mobile, right? He's not mobile at all, so he just sort of stands beside the Sludge Raker, and just right, and so he's always in position where he needs to be. Yeah, so which is quite interesting. You forfeit Mork's Eye Pebble. You don't get the once per game 5-up ward, but you do get an every turn +1 save. Let's just check out Mork's Eye Pebble really quick here. Or Mork's Cunnin, right. Until the start of your next turn, add 1 to save rolls, right? So it's until the start of your next turn. So +1 to save there. And then +1 to save from the spell, and then you can always do the Foul Elixir, right? On a 3-up, so it's not like super guaranteed, right? And it's only on your turn. It's in your hero phase and only on your turn. But still, it's like the turn that you go in, it means that maybe whatever you save stat can fight at the end. Right? So, I don't know. Like, I feel Swampcallas are sick. Like, if you're playing a Swampcalla, with the staff, he's worth it. And I think if you're trying to, like, be a high drop army, if you're like, well, I don't care and I'm just going to take 5 heroes, I think that 2 of them are Swampcallas at minimum. I think in Kruleboyz you want to cast 3 spells. Right? You want to cast Mork's Cunnin. You want to have Choking Mist up all the time. If you can, right? And the Black Pit is an okay, kind of mediocre Horde Buster. So it's a solid 2, right, every time, and then when you want to cast Choking Mist, you want to cast it. So if you're playing 2 Shamans, I think maybe you don't play Craw and Spine. Instead, you probably take, like, the Gravetide Shackles, or maybe, like, Geminids, or maybe even just damage. Like, maybe the army just wants more damage, and if you have 2 Shamans, you can just throw out Burning Head and Jaws or whatever, right? You can just throw damage at people and healing on yourself and just be, like, tons of endless spells or manifestations. So, yep, all good options. I like magic. I think that the Shaman is going to be, like, still probably an A, if not S tier unit for Kruleboyz. Time will tell. I'm not ready to make calls like that yet, right? But, like, everyone's like, oh, you know, everyone's learning the game. It's like, yeah, I know, but, like, there's some stuff that you can kind of figure out pretty quickly. Metas develop, but fundamentals stay the same. Like, the Swampcalla is good. The meta might shift so he doesn't get played, but he's, like, always going to be good, right? His points could go up and you're like, he's overcosted, but he's still good. Gutrippaz are sick. They're scary. They deal a lot of damage now, and this Scare Tactics is actually kind of cool. We're getting into the realm now with Kruleboyz. I'm starting to feel like we just have so many things that we roll at you all the time that debuff you or trick you, right? Be they Strike Lasts or Lethal Surprise or Scary Tactics or some of our spells, or, like, you know, we're just like Slippery Scumbag, right? We're just always doing stuff that's, like, messing with our opponent's plan, but we don't know what's gonna work and what ain't, right? We're rolling enough where some of them are gonna fail, so it's interesting. But just the fact they have this, it's just more of the same, just like debuffs, and, like, it's good. They throw mortal wounds really well now. It's crazy that on 5s they deal 2. It's crazy. Monsta-killaz are sick. Monsta-killaz, I think right now are probably just S tier. Like, I was thinking about, like, what an example of an S tier unit would be right now, and I think that it's Monsta-killaz. Just because they have an obvious role, they do it super, super well. They do their role so well. They just shut down rampages on a 2-up, right? And they're more strike last. So you can be like, this monster strikes last, this other thing strikes last, right? Like, yeah, and then your stuff, you know, runs in and hits. And they're just high value, right? They have high wounds for their points. Like, they're cheap. That's the thing. They're cheap right now. They're super cheap. They are undercosted for sure. They're at 120 points right now. That's why they're S tier, is because they're undercosted. Gutrippaz are 170 points, right? So 50 more points. So 240, right? Versus 340. Okay, so right, it's 100 points for 2 of them, and that's where the math starts to get funny, right? When you start to see the big differences. But it's like, you know, yeah, what are they? 14 wounds versus 20 wounds, 14 control versus, nope, 15 control versus 11 control. No. It's 8 control versus 11 control. So Gutrippaz have a little bit more control. But for their points, like the wounds are just, you know, and the damage output's actually better for Monsta-killaz. Right? Like that, like I was saying before, like they have 1 more rend, you know, and they throw the same number of dice. And that's not including their +1 to rend against monsters. So against monsters, they have 2 rend. So suddenly it's like, okay, like now we're talking, right? Like, this is something. We can work with this. And if you give it a monster strike last, it's like, well, like we're just, if I run into Gargants, like I'm just gonna win against Gargants. Right? I'm just so anti-monster. Yeah, high value. They're cheap. I love Swamp Boss Skumdrek. I think he's fantastic. I think he's fantastic because he's super cheap. He does sort of what a Sludge Raker and Gutrippaz do. He doesn't do it as well, right? But it's still a lot of damage for the point cost. Hobgrotz in a reinforced unit, 200 points versus Gutrippaz in a reinforced unit, right? 340 points. So it's a lot of extra, 140 extra points, right? That's a lot. That's like a unit of Monsta-killaz, right? It's like that now you have, but it's also this other unit that's on the table as well, right? So it's not just these 2, it's more. And it's just value to give Hobgrotz. They throw the same dice that Gutrippaz do. Like they should be dealing about the same amount of mortal wounds, right? So, yeah, you can just give them venom-encrusted weapons if you want. Problem is that they just die to any kind of shooting or range mortal wounds. Or, like, impact mortal wounds, stuff like that, right? Like, they just kind of... because they have half the wounds. But this is fun. Like, it's a fun thing to kind of do, right? Like, if you wanted to play a double Sludge Raker list, you know? Like, I could see, like, a double Sludge Raker list with double Monsta-killaz and a Vulcha of some kind. Right? It's like those are your 3 heroes. Like, you could do Gobsprakk. What you're forfeiting is yeah, anyway. But it could be totally good and fun and strong and scary, right? Like, you just have these 2 mortal wound blenders running around the map. One that's like sort of like in the back, shirking around, trying to not take damage, right? Skumdrek sort of in the back, waiting to see what happens a little bit before committing. Definitely viable, definitely fun. So this is good, I like this. Now the +1, it's even got +1 to wound for the Hobgrotz, right? Yeah, I like it. And Snatchaboss is sick. He's, you know, I think better than Skumdrek, just what he does. So, and also giving your opponent -1 to wound rolls is really good. It's just another debuff. And the more different types of debuffs that we can apply to our enemies, the more likely we are to hit a weak point, right? If you're giving somebody -1 to hit, if they're Iron Jaws, well, it's gonna matter. I don't know which armies are out there that hit on that wound on 4s across the table, but giving them -1 to wound is gonna really hurt them. Yeah, we gotta start, we just have to debuff the brick. Whatever brick of infantry is being thrown at us, we just have to debuff it. That's the idea with Kruleboyz, in the middle anyway, right? And then on the flanks with Monsta-killaz and Vulchas, we're hopefully just gonna outvalue our opponent with cheap Monsta-killaz. Hope they have like monsters, like big pigs on the flanks. And just keep our stuff alive. But yeah, it's awesome. Just double, this is also a force multiplier. So venom-encrusted weapons doubles the damage output of Gutrippaz, but so does this. So does the Sludge Raker venom. So if you have both, it's a double-double. Right? All my Tim's fans out there. So, very, very strong. Blender, 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 blender. Marshcrawla Sloggoth. I think he's just a miss. How... He's not run in charge, he's redeploy and counter charge. is what he is. Okay? So, what's good in Kruleboyz like that? Like, what unit are you redeploying and charging? Monsta-killaz? Just throwing stuff in the way? It's very interesting. I have to talk more about Sloggoth. 4-up save, 10 health. Like, he's not tanky. Okay? Like, this is kind of how I feel about him, okay? So, first of all, he is Marshcrawla. Like, he's not a hero. That's good. But he's 190 points. Okay? He's 190 points. 20 more points than Gutrippaz. 30 more points than a Beastgear Killbow, right? Like, he's expensive, right? So for the price, what I'm gonna get is this run and charge, which is a strong ability generally, okay? And then what else am I getting for my points? 4-up save, 10 wounds. Start of any turn, he just heals D3. Like, things are just gonna eat him. He's just gonna kind of die, you know? He's just going to kind of die. So, and then he doesn't really hit at all. He doesn't have crit mortals. He only has this companion. Okay, the top attacks do nothing. Right, four dice at 4 and 5 with 0 end. This is doing 0 damage. Right, and the claws, 4s and 2s. Okay, with 1 rend, 2 damage. This, but it has companion. Right, so there's no way we're going to change this. You can all out attack this, I guess, but it's still not like a ton of damage. This 4-up hurts, right? When we roll this number, it's going to immediately go to 3, right? And then the probability is that we, you know, it's like, well, suddenly we're dealing like, and 1 rend isn't a ton. Like this looks, it's not a great profile, you know. If he had a mini ballista on his back, he'd be a good back piece. Yep. And but he's not mobile. He moves 6. It's not even like he's fast. Right? And he doesn't even grab things anymore. Like, if he, like, I don't know, like, gives run and charge and an aura. But, like, you can't do that with Gutrippaz and a Sludge Raker. They get out of range. And, like, what are you, if you do that with a unit of Monsta-killaz, like, what are you doing? Just charging, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's not how Kruleboyz play. You know, this isn't how they play. They play like running around and disappearing and like ambushing, and like the Vultures are really mobile, so they sort of show up where you didn't expect them to. Right? You get to a free retreat with Slippery Scumbag on a 3-up, right? Like, it's like flutter away. The run and charge thing just doesn't. Very interesting. So I don't know. I think I just pass on him unless somebody can tell me like why, like what the point is, or like what's the strategy with it. Like, I get it in Iron Jaws where you're like, well, the Ragers have first strike if they charge, and whatever, you know, they're awesome if they charge. So we're gonna try to redeploy them and then charge them in because they're sick when they charge. We don't have anything that is sick when it charges. We get better almost when we get charged, because then we can lethal surprise and stuff. So, like, I don't know what we're running and charging. Like, what do you... like, I don't know. And then besides that, if he was, like, really hard to move and had, like, 5 control, sick. I'm in for that for 190 points. If he had, like, a ballista, like Risky Time Panda was saying, like, sick, I'm in. But it's like he doesn't have anything else. If he had like a 3-up save, but that wouldn't make any sense either. I don't know. Make this make an attack an ability where they pick up friendly Hobgrots and throw them at the enemy. Breaka-boss is sick. I'm playing him. He's pretty good. He's slow as sin. So you have to be very careful about how you're moving him. There's no like tricks for him either. You can't sneak him. You can't do nothing. So you have to just kind of like, you have to just sort of send him into the fight. And where you send him is kind of up to you, but he's also a source of something that isn't mortal wounds in the army. So if you're up against something that has like good wards or whatever, and like bad saves, you know, this thing will like pulverize them pretty well. Right? He's got good those Mire Brute clubs when you have 10 attacks with all out attack 3 2 2 3 like curse smash. Right? Roll the die. If it exceeds the target's health characteristic, that target unit is slain. Or the one model is slain. It's pretty sick. It means he can kill even 5 wound things like rock guts. Right? So that's pretty cool. Probably the only Kruleboyz model you like. It's a sick model. I'm a big fan of orcs, so. And then this heal is like kind of the same as the whatever's, but it's different because this thing is smashing, smashing, smashing. This thing's only 30 more points than a Marshcrawla. And this thing just breaks stuff. That's the name. Breaka-boss. Yeah, I mean, it's good. And like 5 dice for crit mortals at 2 damage, that's not bad either. Sometimes you'll add another 2 on every now and then, maybe 4 sometimes. And that'll be super nice. This thing breaks. Hobgrots are just kind of bad, I think, now. If you want a unit that just gets in the way and is annoying for your opponent and screens, Boltboyz are 10 more points than this. And 3 Boltboyz is pretty good value just because of you get the extra shot. So you're getting more damage per point, and that's kind of what you're doing with them in that role. They're trying to just be efficient and in the way. Right? So feels pretty good to me. I think they're good with Skumdrek. With Skumdrek, they're sick. Take them with Skumdrek. Reinforced. Besides that, I think I pass. Boltboyz are good, but they're not just like super good now. They're not the unit that they were at all, which is fine. It's, you know, the armies change, the game changes. I'm playing Kruleboyz in a totally different way now, which is refreshing and exciting and interesting. Kruleboyz are good now, and more than good, they're fun. Like, they're interesting. You have to, like, really... They're a thinker's army, for sure. So, the way that you deal with that is get lots of reps in. Right? Play lots of games. But they're good. In a unit of 6 right now with priority target. Getting +1/+1. That's the Honor Guard ability for the seasonal rules. Yeah, like, +1 to hit, +1 to wound is pretty solid. It means that you can teleport these guys, and then you can do, like, your hasty shot teleports on 3s and 2s. Right? Because you don't care about this move buff anymore. Right? So now it's 3s and 2s, right? You're throwing 13 dice. 3, 2, 1, 2 crit auto wound. Like, suddenly, kabam, these things are slapping. Or even at range, right? Like 2, 2, 2, 2. That's a pretty good profile. Only 4 dice, right? But still 4 dice with 2, 2, 2, 2. Like, you'll get your 6 damage. You know, like, you'll get your 6 damage, and that's pretty good for a 110.3 model unit. Well, that's actually with a reinforced unit. Sorry, because whenever I think about them in 6. But still, like, they're better than Hobgrots for sure for 10 more points. Yeah. But yeah. Play him in unit of 6. Play 1, play 2. I don't think play 3. I think if you want to play 3, what you do instead is you do 1 unit of 2 and then like 3, 4 units of 3. And then you do dead sneaky, and then you sort of just teleport these things all over the map all the time. And all they do is just like block paths and then shoot. Right? And you're just shooting. and your opponents just like get stuck up in these screens all the time, and you're just sort of constantly peppering and getting in the way and shooting. It's like such a good trade for value, right? And it also enables the strategy of more shooting behind, you know? So yeah, like a block of 6 Bolt Boys, maybe a kill bow, and then like 3 or 4 single units. You could do a strategy. Yeah, you could get the aim extender one there too if you really wanted to, but I don't think you need to. I think Dead Sneaky's better. I think it's better to move them into good shooting positions than it is to have longer ranges and make them go on foot. So don't forget, with Dead Sneaky you can roll up to 4 a turn, and you just don't worry about Venom Encrusted Weapons so much, right? But it's a playstyle. Like, you could do it and have some success, right? You could definitely do like a little mini super annoying shooters Kruleboyz list. Yep. With the Killbow. Killbow's a little bit overpriced, because I think if you were serious about taking one, you would want to take 2. That's why they were sort of at the point of being good last season, just because they were 2 for 160. It just changes the math, right? Like the low attacks, it's like this thing's not moving, so it's hitting on 3s. But still, it's like, you're just not, it's going to miss so much. You know, it's going to miss so much. It's better than a coin flip, that's what it used to be, but it's not much better than a coin flip. It does have 2 red. But still, if you have 2 of these things and they're both shooting, it definitely changes the math. So, they're probably just too expensive. But it's a way better design. Like, I don't hate it now. I like that they've sort of capped it so it's not just... because it's fair now. It wasn't fair before, right? So it's fair now. It just does 6. But if you have 2 of them, it does 12. Right? And if you're throwing 4 dice with 4s, 2s and 2s, right? It's like, okay, like, you know, I only want to get 2 through. So if each one is, you know, a coin flip, right? Like, like, watch out. So, but... oh, anti-monster plus 1 runs 3 rend against monsters. We also have enough monster tech. Doesn't the once per turn army limit it to 1? Oh, this thing? Oh yeah, I guess it does. For the right, this thing, right? The skewering bolt, once per turn army. So I guess then I rate it even worse. I just the low dice, like, weight. It's just, you're not throwing enough dice. So it'll probably do like it did in 3rd and race to the points bottom, I think. To where it's like, it fits in lists. And then you're like, okay, well... oh, and that's it. It's the last Kruleboy. Awesome. Can't wait to go through these things too. So, I don't know. I feel overall like there's a lot of winners. Right? Like, there's a lot of winners. Gobsprack's a winner. Vulcha-boss is a winner. I think the Gnashtooth is a loser. I think the Kill-boss is a loser. Murknob's a loser. Swampcalla's a winner. Gutrippaz are winners. Monsta-killaz are super winners. Skumdrek's a winner. Snatcher-boss is a winner. Sloggoth is a loser. Breaka-boss is a winner. Hobgrots are losers, but they're like in the middle, right? They're like normally losers, but if you sort of take a Skumdrek, then they become winners. So if you like them and want to play them, you can play them in a list where they're winners. Bolt Boys, I think Bolt Boys are winners, which is weird to say, but I think that they're winners. They didn't get nerfed so bad that they don't see play. Like, we're still going to play them. I think you'll still see them in every list. I don't see a problem with, like, 6 Bolt Boys. They're very good, super sneaky targets. You know, they're not going to pump a bunch of damage into whatever, but they can help, you know, like, clear screens. It's just extra damage. If you really want to focus the center, you can just put them in the middle and they're just extra damage that is consistent every turn. I don't think their counter shoot is particularly good, right? But if it's, you know, if they're doing aim shot and they're on 2s and 2s, right? Like, Yeah, that's right. So, but I feel like they're winners. I'll give them a winner. And the Killboy, I have to say, is a loser, I think, unfortunately. So, you know, overall, I think super good. And I also know that that's how all the other armies are feeling as well about their heroes, where it's like, you know, oh, so we have so many heroes that you never play because we just can't afford the drops. It's like, yeah, exactly. Exactly. I feel like they should fix that. They should expand it always. Well, Stormcast Eternals always had that. Yeah, like I know Stormcast Eternals super well, and it's exactly that. It's like there's too many options. It's no good, right? Anyway, like, subscribe.